Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the Splash City Basketball Podcast. I'm your host, Steve Hartman. To prepare everyone for the upcoming college basketball season, I am taking a look at major conferences, getting you a preview, providing you with what I think are the most interesting storylines, what I think are teams to watch, players to watch, just trying to bring some fandom to the podcast here. College basketball is my jam, and so I want to share that with all of you. This week, I will be looking at the Big 12 preview. We'll have shorter segments, quicker segments, what I call a 3-and-D segment. So that's 3 storylines and a dark horse pick on all the major conferences. So we did our Big 10 preview. Today we're looking at the Big 12 teams to watch, players to watch. So let's get into it. This is the Splash City Basketball Podcast. The Big 12 has produced numerous top teams in the last few years, including Houston. Kansas was recently, as 2022, won a national title. And there's lots of interesting storylines in the Big 12 this coming season. So first storyline is the Houston Cougars. Kelvin Sampson comes back. He's got 3 returning starters. He has a squad that went to the national title game, actually had a double-digit lead in that title game against Florida. They fall to the Gators, so the runners up, but they are back with a core, and that core includes guards Milos Uzan, Emmanuel Sharp, and forward Joseph Tugler. They are the preseason favorites. They are atop most polls, either 1 or 2. I see them on KenPom as number 1. I see them in Bart Torvik as number 1. And they were picked number 1 in the preseason Big 12 media poll as well. So a couple of other things about Houston. They do bring in a couple of 5-star freshmen, which Kelvin Sampson hasn't had in the past. They've usually relied on seniors, physical, older players. But now with their more prominent place amongst college basketball, they are starting to get some 5-stars. So they have a couple of Chris Senac Jr. and Kingston Flemings are 2 notable ones. The biggest thing for those 2 specifically is, can they match Houston's game? And that game is physical defense, attacking the rim, and just being relentless on the floor, both on offense and defense. They're losing seniors from last year. Jawan Roberts, 5-year player for Kelvin Sampson, and LJ Cryer, a very veteran guard, big shot maker. So Emmanuel Sharp is that big shot maker for them. They will definitely rely on Tugler down low, but they're going to need these young guys to fill those shoes and get up to speed. One thing I heard Kelvin Sampson talking about at Media Day was that, some of these freshmen, as highly touted as they are, they're highly touted against 16 and 17-year-olds, not 21 and 22-year-old men. So that's something that Sampson's going to continue to push on his younger players. But I fully expect Houston to be a Final Four contender, national title contender. Last year they had a 19-1 record in the Big 12, which is crazy when you consider how good that league is. I think I heard that in 2 years in the Big 12, Houston is 34-4, and this is the league that Bill Self and Kansas ran for 14 straight years, 14 straight conference titles. Houston comes in from the American and just completely owns the league right now. So until someone can knock them off, it's Houston versus the field. This year, I would probably take Houston if we had to place some bets on that right now. Who are those challengers to Houston? There's a couple at the top. There's a couple loaded with young guys. Let's start with the older team, Iowa State. 25-10 last year. They finished 5th in the league. They lost to Ole Miss in the round of 32. What I love about Iowa State is that they bring back seniors. So they have Taman Lipsey, outstanding point guard. He'll be a senior this year. Shot at almost 50% from the field, 10 points per game. Also an elite on-ball defender. He averaged 2 steals a game last year. He's all Big 12 preseason for the 2nd consecutive year. He is going to run the show. As long as he's healthy, Iowa State is going to be tough to beat. Senior 6'5" guard Nate Heisey from Lake City, Minnesota also returns. He's an all glue guy, bigger guard who can defend, but also a very capable shooter. He led their team in 3-point percentage last year at 40.9%. Another returning senior, 6'9" forward Joshua Jefferson. He is a low down low. He will be their inside scoring presence for the Cyclones. Between those three, as well as Milan Momcilovic, who's a junior, that's 4 core players returning from last year's team that made it to the NCAA tournament, finished 5th in the Big 12. The other piece that Iowa State that they're going to have to replace from last year is Curtis Jones Jr. So he was St. Paul Cretin-Durham Hall kid. He's actually with the Nuggets now, and he provided tons of outside shooting, tons of scoring opportunities for Iowa State. He was one of those guys that when they needed buckets, they could rely on him. So that's a guy they're going to have to replace. What they did, they went out in the transfer portal. They got 6'5" guard Dominic Nelson from Utah Valley. He led Utah Valley to the WAC championship and averaged 14 points a game. The thing with Nelson is he will get to the free throw line. He finished the season last year 13th nationally in free throw attempts. And so that there's another scorer for TJ Otzelberger's Iowa State squad. On the other side of it is a younger team, but that's Texas Tech. They finished second in the Big 12 last year, went to the Elite Eight, lost also to Florida, pushed them extremely close to making it past Florida to the Final Four. They will be losing, though, some important pieces, including Darian Williams, who went to NC State, and then Elijah Hawkins and Chance McMillan, who graduated and who are playing professionally now. So the Red Raiders return All-American candidate JT Toppin, who was Big 12 Player of the Year, is an absolute beast, transferred from New Mexico and just went right into the Big 12 and didn't skip a beat. Averaged 18 points, 9 rebounds a game in the Big 12. So he's going to be the focal point of the Red Raiders. And otherwise, they're relying on some transfers and some freshmen. So last year they had all Big 12 freshmen. Christian Anderson at a shooting guard. He will be relied upon much more for his scoring ability. He did average 10 points a game last year as a freshman. Grant McCaslin went out to the transfer portal, got 6'6" junior from Washington State. Lawan Watts, who kind of did everything. Like he's a classic Texas Tech guy where he's gonna score, he's gonna rebound, he facilitates, he moves the ball well. The other guys that they brought in, Josiah Mosley, who was the Texas Gatorade Player of the Year 2 years ago, went to Villanova. He transfers back to home in Texas Tech. And then they also grabbed a 6'11" shot blocker from VCU, who was all A10 defensive team. I think Texas Tech is definitely going to be in the top 5 of the Big 12. It's just whether or not they can get enough around JT Toppin to run through the gauntlet that is the Big 12. A couple other players of note. I mentioned the Texas Gatorade Player of the Year, Josiah Mosley from 2 years ago. Grant McCaslin actually also recruited 2 other Gatorade Players of the Year, including freshman guard from Washington, Jalen Petty, and Minnesota's Gatorade Player of the Year last year, 6'5" guard Nolan Groves. Don't know how much those two will play. If there's injuries, those two might have to step in. But there's definitely talent on this Texas Tech team. There's some returning excellence in JT Toppin. It's always, in this day and age, it's always a mystery how these things are going to mesh with transfers and freshmen. But Texas Tech, with Toppin alone, should be in the mix. There's also a freshman's arms race going on in the Big 12. If you have not watched any of the hype or seen any clips of these freshmen, you need to get out and watch them. There are 2 players specifically that you're definitely going to want to watch at some point early in the season. You'll get a chance on opening night when BYU plays Villanova in Las Vegas. And I'm talking specifically about AJ Dybantsaa. He is a potential top pick in the NBA draft next year. There's basically a 3-horse race for that at this point, and we'll talk about the other one, the other player soon. But Dybantsaa instantly, elevates BYU. They had a really good team last year. They are picked to finish anywhere, from second in the media poll. A lot of that is the Dybantsaa hype. Ken Pom has them a little bit lower because Ken Pom doesn't look at freshmen as much because there's no historical data on them. So Ken Pom starts them BYU off at 6th. But just watching a little bit of Dybantsaa in some of these exhibition games, and he is an incredible player. He has long arms. He can get to the bucket. He's got handles. They're good. They're going to be good. They got Richie Saunders back, who's a great player. He's a veteran. He's going to be, a scorer for them as well. So Dybantsaa doesn't have to do everything, which I think is important for freshmen. But to me, the X factor is the 6'8" senior Keba Keita. I loved watching him play last year. He was a big physical guy, not the tallest, obviously at 6'8", but he will battle in some of these tougher environments like the Houston Bigs, Texas Tech, even against Kansas. He kind of dominated Dickinson last year. So I think he's the X factor. If those three stay healthy, Dybantsaa, Saunders, and Keita, BYU is going to definitely be pushing Houston. They're going to be pushing for a top spot in the Big 12, and they're going to be making noise in March Madness. Another team that reloaded off of last year's season was Arizona Wildcats. So Arizona finished 3rd in the Big 12. They lost to Duke in the Sweet 16. Really fun team last year. Tommy Lloyd continues to bring in high-level recruits. He's got a pair of McDonald's All-Americans this year in Cole Pete and Braden Burries. But the Wildcats are going to have to replace a couple of big-time players, and that's Caleb Love, who moved to the NBA, and KJ Lewis, who entered the transfer portal. Bringing in, again, a mix of freshmen and transfers is always tricky. I do like that Arizona has senior guards Jaden Bradley and Anthony Del Orso back, and I think that will help them a lot in this phase, especially with those freshmen. So expect, Arizona to play with a lot of bigs. They always have size. They have 3 guys over 6'11", so they're going to rebound. They're going to get out in transition. Added bonus for viewers, LeBron James should be in attendance at many games this year. Bryce James, his son, is actually on this roster as well. So expect to see a lot of LeBron photo ops at these Arizona games in Tucson. But they are picked to finish 4th in the preseason media poll. Ken Pom has a little bit higher than that, and so does Bart Torvik. So I would expect Arizona to be somewhere in that 3-4 range in the Big 12 this year. And again, pushing for a Sweet 16, Elite 8. They have that kind of talent. All right, let's talk about the biggest brand in the Big 12, and that is Kansas. After a couple of years of maybe lower finishes than expected in the Bill Self era, he's been out recruiting hard. He's got the number 1 recruit in the 2025 class in Darryn Peterson. Again, he is another one like Dybantsaa that you are going to want to watch. Like if you can watch a KU game early in the season, you will be maybe surprised to see how ready this freshman is. Self has already called Peterson the most talented freshman he's coached, not the most talented player of all, not the best player he's ever had yet. But as far as a freshman coming in, he has the tools. He is ready to contribute. And when you combine him with Flory Badunga, a 6'10" sophomore forward, Kansas has a fascinating 1-2 punch. Those two are as good as any 1-2 in college basketball. The problem for Kansas could be these other guys. Like, are they going to step in and be ready to contribute and contribute at a high level? Because you're playing the Houstons, the Texas Techs, the Arizonas. Kansas didn't quite have the horses, I would say, in the last couple of years. DeJuan Harris was a nice player, not dynamic enough in the Big 12 on the offensive end. Hunter Dickinson, nice player, not athletic enough in the Big 12. And so Bill Self brings in some transfer guards, Trey White from Illinois, Jaden Dawson from Loyola Chicago. Those should be their 3rd and 4th options, maybe a steadying presence. The other player to watch for them is a big 5-star recruit, Bryson Tiller. He redshirted last year, starting in January. And so he came on campus early, redshirted, so he could be with the team, get his work in, start working on his body. And he should help Badunga in the front court. So we'll see if Kansas can get back to where they were used to being. The preseason poll, though, has them at 6th in the Big 12. Ken Pom has them at 7th, and Bart Torvik has them at 5th. So a lot of question marks. It's going to really hinge on Peterson's ability to carry the load as a true freshman. He is going to be fun to watch. Another program that has had a lot of success in the Big 12 but has slipped recently is Baylor. Baylor was 20-15 last year. They tied for 7th in the Big 12. They made it to the tournament, lost to Duke in the second round. I really like Scott Drew. I just don't feel like this roster is going to get them back to where they were, where they're competing for a Big 12 title. He's relying on transfers and freshmen strictly. There's a lot of high risk. There's a lot of high reward strategy here, but I'm just not a huge believer at this moment in time. Local folks might remember the name Chris Carr from the Timberwolves. His son, who was actually born in Eden Prairie, joins the Bears after a stop in Tennessee. Other transfers that are in play for Baylor: J.J. White from Omaha, Dan Skillings from Cincinnati. Those are older guys who will bring some veteran leadership. But the top of the Big 12 is extremely tough and competitive. I feel like Baylor's just a notch below them. All right, storyline 3. So there's a group of teams that are somewhat newcomers to the Big 12, and it's Cincinnati, Colorado, Utah, Arizona State. Which of these teams has an opportunity? There's one brand that sticks out, and that's Cincinnati. Cincinnati historically has had great college basketball teams. They have a history. They have elite players, Nick Van Exel, Kenyon Martin. Those teams were amazing teams and made strong pushes in the tournament. Bob Huggins was there before moving on. That's the team that of this group that needs to make a push. I think Wes Miller's is on an extremely hot seat right now. They're projected to be in the middle of the pack in this conference. The Big 12 schedule is brutal, so they need to make hay in their non-con. I know Cincinnati put some effort into scheduling in the offseason, and so they have a Dayton, they have Louisville, they have Xavier and Georgia on their non-conference, and Clemson. So if Cincinnati can make a push to get back to the tournament, if they are going to get back to more relevance, those are the games that you'll be watching. So the Dayton game on the 11th, Louisville on November 21st. Those are the teams that are going to have to either beat, or at least with Louisville, be competitive with, for me to start believing that Cincinnati could be one of those extra teams in the NCAA tournament. The other one, just to quickly talk about, one of my favorite college players, Bobby Hurley, coaching at Arizona State. His seat is as hot as it gets. Arizona State lost to UC Irvine, who was an NIT team last year in an exhibition. That didn't help. If things don't get turned around dramatically, I'd say Bobby Hurley will be probably the first coach let go in the Big 12 this year. So those are the 3 storylines. And my dark horse this year, I'm really enjoying the Iowa State team. I think having seniors, I think having familiarity, they have toughness. They're a little bit modeled after Houston, and I think how they're constructed. I love Lipsey. They're definitely going to miss Curtis Jones off of last year's teams, but I really like TJ Otzelberger, and I like the way his teams play. I feel like they could end up second in the Big 12, leapfrogging a few teams just based on their veterans, and if they stay healthy. Lipsey's been banged up at times, so if him and Jefferson and Heisey and Momcilovic are all healthy, that team is going to be tough to beat. So that's my Big 12 preview. I hope you enjoyed it. Houston's clear-cut favorite. They are the team to beat. They seem like they're on a mission, but there are challengers and there are freshmen who are going to light this conference up. I think definitely take a look at A.J. Dybantsaa, Darryn Peterson. Watch this Iowa State. Watch Houston if you want to watch good basketball. The Big 12 has some great teams. They have some great coaches. Up next, we'll get to more conference previews as we head into the opening week of college basketball.
Back in that bag again. Whoa, yeah. Hey. Back in that.